Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy.
After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech.
Filmmaker? Isn't that what they call it? No, that's not what they call it because that's not the word. The word is filmmaker. Filmmaker, filmmaker. One word, no A. Filmmaker. That, of course, was from last night's presidential debate on CNN, hosted by Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. We're going to talk about that in a second with Michael Cohen. He's here for a morning after post-debate analysis. We'll get to Michael in just a second. But first, thank you for tuning in today. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please follow or subscribe and rate and review, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. And don't forget, stick around later for another episode of Just Jeff. All right, let's get to the debate. The reason why that particular exchange was so powerful to me was almost the biggest takeaway of the night. It's because Trump in that moment was admitting that there was some really bad shit that went down on January 6th. Except it was Nancy's job to deal with it, not mine. He didn't deny that it happened. He didn't do that. He acknowledged it happened, but that she took full responsibility for it. So I got a lot to say, but here's the thing. I am not going to deny that Joe Biden seemed older and weaker than Donald Trump, because the Joe Biden that showed up last night was the Joe Biden that people are concerned about. One of the interesting things that happened last night was that Joe Biden started off weak. I think he came into his Scranton Joe voice midway through. There were moments where he was State of the Union Joe Biden. Donald Trump, on the other hand, started off perhaps in the rehearsed Donald Trump mode of quiet, disciplined, and then in the second half became maniac Donald Trump. The Donald Trump that should remind us all who should never, ever, 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 ever step foot in the Oval Office again. So, in terms of who showed up last night, no surprises. But Joe Biden had a cold. People were texting me left and right. I said, there's something wrong with him tonight. He doesn't sound like that normally. There's something wrong. He looks sick. And then we find out through reporting, I think from Norah O'Donnell at CBS, that he had a cold, a bad cold. Why they didn't announce that and let us know, I don't know. Why he didn't come out during the day and say, hey, folks, I feel like crap today. I got a really bad cold. Murphy's Law, timing's everything, right? But you know what? I am showing up tonight because I've got a job to do. How come he didn't during the debate say that I am here because I got a job to do? And you folks at home, the working class, you understand, you get up in the morning, you don't feel well, you gotta go to work because you only have certain sick days left. Why didn't he do that? Why didn't they let us know that he was not feeling well? That's a question for the ages. But let's start off with what Joy Reid of MSNBC calls, quote, egregious lack of fact-checking. How on earth was Donald Trump allowed to stand there for 90 minutes and lie about everything? Everything. You cannot win a debate if the person standing 8 feet away from you is untethered from facts, the truth, and reality. That gives him the home court advantage, because your choice is to either try to fact check him in real time as his opponent, and that means you never get to say anything about what you are and what you're going to do if you are president again, or you just got to ignore it. And so what happened last night was Donald Trump was allowed to just say whatever the fuck he wanted about anything, and there was nobody there to check him on it. Nobody. That's why that debate was a total sham. Now, I got to say, I have a lot of respect for Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. I think they're both fantastic journalists. I'm not sure what the calculated strategy was last night in not fact-checking. I think that was a big, big mistake. It normalizes Trump. It normalizes his lies. And that's why we're with him today in this situation. That's why he is the nominee of one of our two parties. That's why the election is as close as it is. Because people are like, you know what? That's just Trump. Yeah, so what? He's a delusional sociopath who lies nonstop. Forget that. Let's just obsess on Joe Biden. The only way that Trump won this debate, the only way, is if we have reduced debates to who can lie unchecked the best and the most. So what happened after this debate? Widespread Democratic panic. I am not going to get involved in that, because I think if you have the narrative going into that debate that Joe is old and senile and he's just not up to the job, then last night you got your chicken on a rotisserie. You got that served up to you on a silver platter. And so those people came out in droves last night. He's got to bow out of the race. It's time to pick somebody else. Josh Shapiro, Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, anybody but Joe. And that, I think, is a disaster. Sure, there was a lot that could have gone and should have gone differently. His closing was awful. There was a lot that was awful. But anybody who stands here and says Joe Biden didn't hit a lot of the points, let's just go through them. Let's go through the moments where Joe Biden hit Trump hard in the most vulnerable Trump places. He got him on the cheating. He said, how many millions do you owe for molesting women while your wife was pregnant? He got him on the convicted felon thing. What did Trump do? Turn around and goes, your son is a convicted felon. I wish Biden in that moment would have said, my son's not running for president, but you are. Okay, but he didn't. He said Trump has the morals of an alley cat. He forced Trump on national television in a debate, a candidate running for president, to say, I didn't have sex with a porn star. That was not a good moment for Trump. He called him on the suckers and losers thing and the military issue. He called him out on J6 and said, how dare you refer to these people as patriots? He called him out on abortion, the whole afterbirth abortion thing. He also called him on being the worst president in history. He cited the 159 presidential historians who said he is the worst in history. He also cited the 40 former cabinet members and aides who refuse to support and endorse Trump. When they talked about playing golf, he did say, I'll play golf with you if you carry your own bag. And he looked at him and said, will you do that? Will you carry your own bag? I think that was a big hit. And then he said, you're a whiner. Tell me that Joe Biden didn't hit hard in the places he needed to hit. The problem was, it wasn't that he didn't say them. The problem was how he said it. Okay? Now imagine for a second, he looks over at Donald Trump and he goes, you want to play golf with me? I'll tell you one thing, Mr. Trump. I'm not going to be sitting in a freaking golf cart. I'm going to carry my own bag. Can you do that? Can you carry your own bag? If he said it like that instead of, I'll play golf with you. You can carry your own bag. You can carry your own bag. Can you do that? Can you carry your own bag? That was the problem. It's not that he didn't say things. It's how he said them. And voters are going to have to make a choice 4 months from now, whether they're going to vote on style or substance. And so here's the thing about Trump. We mentioned the lies. Let's play this because this is unbelievable.
What stood out was the staggering number of false claims from former President Trump. On first count, Aaron, I counted at least 30 false claims. He said some Democratic states allow people to execute babies after birth, an egregious lie that is illegal in every state. He said everybody, even Democrats, wanted Roe v. Wade overturned. Roe was supported by 2/3 of Americans, even more Democrats. He said every legal scholar wanted Roe overturned, abortion returned to the states. Legal scholars have told me directly this is not true. He said the U.S. currently has the biggest budget deficit deficit ever? No, that happened under Trump in 2020. He said the U.S. currently has a record trade deficit with China. That also happened under Trump in 2018. He said Biden personally gets a lot of money from China. Zero evidence of this. He said there were no terror attacks during his presidency. In fact, there were multiple attacks. He said Iran didn't fund Hamas, Hezbollah, other terror groups under his presidency. Iran, in fact, did. He said Biden wants to quadruple people's taxes. That is pure fiction. He said the U.S. has provided way more aid to Ukraine than Europe had. It's actually the opposite. He said the U.S. has provided about $200 billion in Ukraine aid. It's closer to $110 billion. He said 18 or 19 million people have crossed the border under Biden. That is millions too high. He said many of these migrants are from prisons or mental institutions. His own campaign cannot corroborate this. He said Biden has only created jobs for illegal immigrants. Total nonsense. He said Nancy Pelosi turned down his offer of 10,000 National Guard troops on January 6th. There's no evidence she even got such an offer. It was the president, not Pelosi, who had the power to deploy the D.C. Guard. He said Pelosi now acknowledges she turned down the troops. No, her office tells me this claim is still a lie. He said he deployed the National Guard to Minneapolis in 2020. Actually, that was the Democratic governor. He spoke of, quote, ridiculous fraud in the 2020 election. Zero evidence of any widespread fraud. He said NATO was going out of business before he took office. Completely, clearly absurd. He said the U.S. was paying 100% of NATO before he came along. The U.S. made up about 71% of NATO defense spending, not 100. He said he, not Biden, is the one who lowered insulin prices in Medicare. He did it for some seniors, but Biden did it for far more. He said Biden indicted him. Again, no evidence Biden has had a personal role in any of these four prosecutions. He said Europe takes no U.S. cars. Just not true. He spoke of food prices quadrupling under Biden. That's a wild exaggeration, though they are up. He said Biden made up the idea he called dead service members suckers and losers. No, the Atlantic magazine reported that, and then former Trump Chief of Staff John Kelly corroborated it. He said Biden called black people, quote, super predators for 10 years. Biden never once deployed that phrase, let alone for 10 years, though he did at least once speak of, quote, predators without specifying it was about black people. He said his Trump tax cut was the largest in U.S. history. Not true, though, in fairness, Biden also said this. Trump said China and others stopped buying from Iran under him. China never stopped. He revived his pet lie, I don't know how many times I've done it, that he signed the Veterans Choice Program into law. Barack Obama did that in 2014. Trump signed an expanded version in 2018. And finally, Trump said Biden got rid of that Veterans Program. Biden has not done that.
Just listen to that. That's CNN's Daniel Dale, the fact checker. Just listen to that for a second. Let that sink in. Under any other moment in history, if a presidential candidate lied that much in a debate, it would have been not only the most talked about thing the next day, it would be disqualifying. Howard Dean screamed. He was done. Donald Trump could make all those lies about immigration, immigrants, abortion, crime, the economy, Social Security and Medicare, terror attacks, Biden getting China bribes, J6, the economy, debt and deficits, on and on and on and on. And people are like, man, Joe Biden sounded weak. Why isn't anyone talking about all the shit that Donald Trump does and says and is? This is the problem. There's no balance here. There's one person I heard, one person, and I hope to God she's listening to this podcast. It's Mika Brzezinski this morning on Morning Joe, because she kept saying, okay, but Trump is ... And if all you do is obsess over Joe Biden's breathiness and his delivery and the fact that he appeared old. Black jobs. Why is there nobody in the media talking about black jobs? Donald Trump said immigrants took away all the black jobs. What jobs are those? I wish someone would tell me, what is a black job? Okay? Let's talk about that. And what about the whole jacked up thing? Biden's going to be jacked up on Mountain Dew and performance-enhancing drugs, or he's going to be on Coke, whatever. That was nothing but a big, fat lie. Okay? Everything with these people is a lie. And I think voters know that. So in conclusion, this was one night. There's 4 months left. So we will soon see what's going to happen here. We're going to see more punditry. We're going to see polls. And we're also going to see Joe Biden on the road. And we're going to see Donald Trump on the road. Most interesting thing, though, and this is the only thing that matters, people. MSNBC had a focus group of Arizona voters, 4 people. They were not Democrats, but 3 of them indicated they'd be voting for Biden. That's because they were processing it in their mind. Biden is blah, 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 but Trump is worse. That is what's going to happen on November 5th.
Well, Biden did not give a good performance And when he first started talking, it caught my breath and I was in shock. You know, we've been talking about it in the back room about this debate, leading up to debate. And I'm like beyond an anxious person. And I kept thinking the State of the Union Joe was going to show up. I didn't even give it a second thought. I wasn't worried at all. And then I thought, damn, girl, why did you not think about this option? Because it just never occurred to me. He was over-rehearsed. The split screen did not help him with his mouth agape. It didn't inspire confidence. Obviously, Trump's lies were unchecked. What I loved most about what you just analyzed for us was your unwavering confidence and optimism, and it gives me hope. As I've said many times, can I just carry you in my pocket all the time when I feel like, oh my God, I can't breathe?
I'll be your pocket Andy.
I want a pocket Andy. But, to your point, performance is not the same as substance.
Mm-hmm.
The real question is which candidate will support policies that you align with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going with optimistic Andy. I think when push comes to shove, I think that he'll be the candidate. I don't think somebody's going to be drafted. I think when people go into the booth, they're going to think, what is best for me? And what's best for me is an honest person who surrounds himself with thoughtful, intelligent people who want the best for the United States, not for enriching themselves.
First, was that your rant that we opened with? I just wanted to
No, Matty.
You have a rant also?
I know this is going to excite you so much, but there's like, in effect, two rants.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I was just making sure. When I first listened, I really just thought of David Cameron because David Cameron called for a Brexit vote, thinking that no one could possibly vote for Brexit. And of course, that was the stupidest thing he could have possibly done. And we're seeing Macron do the same thing with the national election now in France. And I thought, why the fuck did Biden want to have this debate? It's a travesty. The whole premise of this debate is to put someone who's failed at attempted coup on the same plane as someone who's actually president of the United States and comparing them when we know one of them is going to have a fire hose of lies, also known as a gish gallop, actually. I found it unbelievable that the format that they thought was going to actually hurt Trump helped him tremendously. By cutting off the microphone, he somehow had the discipline not to interrupt, not to do all of the things that made him unpresidential. Now, the lies were given. We knew he was going to tell a stream of lies. Who is the debate for? It's not for anyone in this room. The debate is for undecided voters. That's the only people who are going to be convinced. Democrats already know who they're going to vote for. MAGA knows who they're going to vote for. The people who are going to make a decision on this are people who don't have any information. They're low information voters. If they had high information, they wouldn't even be thinking about voting for Trump. That wouldn't be so close. The election, every poll, whether you like polls or not, puts them neck and neck. That's a given. We can't dismiss that. So you have all of these undecided voters who are being filled all this obviously stream of lies. And then you have Biden performing his worst performance I can even possibly remember in the most important debate of his life. He sometimes rambled on into sentences that didn't even end. They didn't make any sense at all. And he looked older than he's ever looked that I've ever seen him. He performed so badly. It was incredibly painful for the first half hour. So what do these low information voters get from this? They get, at best, they don't like either of the candidates. They see this old guy and this other guy who says a lot of stuff they may not agree with. And they're just left with, well, maybe there's a third party vote that I can play with because neither of these people are people I want to vote for. And on top of that, we're told for the last week or 2 weeks that Biden was sequestered at Camp David, preparing for this debate. My God, he was giving up some layup shots. The worst one was abortion, the one topic which he should have destroyed Trump on. And he started to talk about immigration, the weakest topic we have. What the fuck?
Yeah, but you see, and this is my point. No one is going to deny that President Biden is old and slow and makes unforced errors like that. But unless you finish that sentence and go, but that other guy, and that's it.
But who's
That
looking
is
at the
it.
debate?
No, but you're talking about people who are still undecided. And I think at the end of the day, This is June. People haven't even decided what meat they're cooking up on July 4th. But on November 5th, they're going to do the right thing. And that doesn't mean they're not going to hold their nose and go, God, I can't stand voting for Joe Biden. But they'll do it. They'll do it. So all I'm saying is, let's see what the next 4 months bring. Hell, let's see what the next 4 days bring. Let's see what the next 4 weeks bring. But let's for sure see what the next 4 months bring. Anyone who thinks Donald Trump won last night, I'm not talking about the polls or the media people. I'm talking about in a real, meaningful sense of how that night is going to fit in with everything else voters are going to take into the polls. Well, reproductive rights? You think moderate women, suburban moderate Republican women, you think they give a shit about last night versus their bodies when they go vote? They know who took away their right to have an abortion. They know. Well, and they do not care what Joe Biden sounded like. They were
already going to vote for Biden if those are the people you're describing. Again, the audience for this debate are people who don't have those ideas in their head. They don't pay attention. They tuned in because this is the debate and they wanted to see what was going to go on. And they saw this con man versus this guy who was incoherent at times, even though he did recover later in the debate and did have some good zingers. But overall, he came across as feeding the stereotype that he is old, feeble, and senile. And he checked every one of those boxes.
No.
Yes, I agree. And if you just watch
you guys are crazy.
So if you just watch the body language, I agree with you. But it wasn't just that. I really don't think that Trump appeared unhinged. I thought he was calm. He was the most presidential I think I've ever seen him. He was succinct. He was doing what you're supposed to do in a debate when you have low information voters. 100%.
I think you guys watched a different debate than I did. But we shall see. This is the beauty. This is the beauty of time, Jen.
For sure.
Okay, because we've got nothing but time. You guys want to call it over and throw in the towel?
No.
On June 20?
No. We're just talking about the debate. We're just talking about
this moment in time.
Right. We're not. I'm not talking about. I mean, I already gave you my assessment about November.
Joe Biden won because honesty and truth and substance is what he gave last night. All right, let's get to our winners and losers.
My winner, the Surgeon General, for declaring gun violence a public health crisis and is calling for a multi-pronged effort to reduce gun deaths modeled on campaigns against smoking and traffic fatalities. My loser, SCOTUS limits scope of anti-bribery law that effectively legalizes bribery for state and local officials so long as they receive the cash or gifts after taking the official act that the briber wants.
My winner are third-party candidates. After yesterday's debate, I think many low-information voters are going to be turned off by both candidates, and they're going to look for some third option. My loser is stare decisis. In a massive power grab this morning, SCOTUS has reduced the authority of the executive branch and undercut regulations that have been at the core of over 17,000 lower court rulings and 70 previous Supreme Court decisions. Overturning Chevron is catastrophic.
My winner, President Joe Biden, who, suffering through a cold and, yes, being old and slow, still showed a command of the facts and won the debate on substance and truth-telling. My loser, Donald Trump, who demonstrated yet again that he is unfit to serve. Matty, it's time for the second rant of the day.
I'm ready.
Okay. Last night's debate was one night. One night. I can't speak for my fellow Democrats, but I refuse to panic and throw in the towel. I refuse to fall into the trap of regurgitating Republican talking points. I refuse to incessantly whine about Joe Biden's performance while pretending as if Donald Trump doesn't exist. I refuse to be inured by Trump's duplicitous, deranged, dangerous, diabolically evil behavior and act as if he and Biden are the same. Been watching all the post-debate analysis, and the one-sidedness of it is stunning and infuriating. The bar for Biden is so high, while the bar for Trump is below ground. Here's the reality. One candidate is old and slow, and the other is a fucking dangerous, unfit maniac. Consider what Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman said, quote, "I refuse to join the Democratic vultures on Biden's shoulder after the debate. No one knows more than me that a rough debate is not the sum total of the person and their record." Fetterman and others coming to Biden's defense are 1,000% correct. There's 4 months left. More legal problems ahead for Trump, a July 11th sentencing, 2 party conventions, maybe another debate, and plenty of time for Trump to continue acting like the unhinged, incoherent, malignant narcissist he is. And plenty of time for President Biden to demonstrate the staggering contrasts between him and Trump. Let's get something straight here. There's only 2 options on this menu, and one's a juicy cheeseburger, and the other's a hot, steamy pile of shit. Now, you can jerk off to your Gavin Newsom and Josh Shapiro fantasies all you want, but Joe Biden's not going anywhere. He's the candidate, like it or not. And the campaign is reporting that last night, from 11 p.m. to 12 a.m., they had their best grassroots fundraising hour since launch, besting its 2 record-breaking hours earlier in the evening, making June 27th its best grassroots fundraising day since launch. So instead of trying to find all the ways that Joe Biden is not Gavin fucking Newsom, do whatever you can between now and November 5th to rally around him, support him, donate to him, canvass for him, whatever. Because the alternative is Donald Trump. And Donald Trump will finish the job he started in 2017 and fucking destroy America. As Josh Shapiro himself said this morning, stop worrying and start working. All right, it's time for Michael Cohen. He is the former personal attorney for Donald Trump and served for years as an executive in the Trump Organization. He is host of the Mea Culpa with Michael Cohen podcast and co-host of Political Beatdown with Michael Cohen and Ben Meiselas podcast. He's also a 2-time New York Times bestselling author. His latest book is Revenge, How Donald Trump Weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice Against His Critics. And he is principal of crisis management firm Crisis X. Michael, welcome back into the back room.
Andy, good to be here.
All right, so my first question.
Well, you really don't. You don't give it a second.
No.
You're not even warming up here. You're just like right into this thing.
Exactly. 2-minute man, that's my middle name.
At least you're 30 seconds more than Donald, right?
There he is, folks. He started already.
I did not have sex with that porn star.
Michael's doing the accordion hand thing. Who is it that said they want to put cymbals in his hands? So he looks like the monkey when he's doing that.
Mark.
All
By
right.
the way, good marketing tool.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll package that and sell it with his sneakers at some point. So I'm sure you were sitting like everybody else watching this debate, and you were probably shocked when you saw that he was lying nonstop, weren't you, Michael?
No, I mean, what's to be shocked about? When he was president of the United States, they stopped counting after 35,000 lies to the American people. 35,000. I mean, it's an astounding number that, once again, he has broken every number record, in the history of this country, as he claims that he has done just so often. The one thing that he actually has broken the record on is the number of lies told to the American people.
Mm-hmm. So what's your biggest takeaway last night? Everybody is panicking today, calling for Biden to bow out, all these fantasies of Gavin Newsom and Josh Shapiro. When you watched that debate last night, what was the first and last thing that you thought of?
I was disappointed in the outcome, of course. Let me rephrase that. I was disappointed in the Biden performance. Something I'll share with you and your listeners is that I had reached out to a member of Congress who I am somewhat close with and offered the two of us to assist, like Bob Bauer and Ron Klain, who were preparing President Biden at Camp David, knowing that I know more about how to get under Donald Trump's skin than anyone on this planet. All right? Or as much as anyone on this planet. Certainly much more than they do. Well, that being the case, never heard back from them. And I hate to say it, but this is the result of bad preparation. All right? Plain and simple. And look, I'm not criticizing Ron Klain or Bob Bauer, two beacons in Democratic, candidacies. They are both fantastic. The problem is you are fighting an enemy that, despite what you think you know about him, you do not. And there's a way that you need to handle a debate against Donald Trump. So, like, if you asked me a question and I was Joe Biden, I'll tell you how I would answer that question to get underneath Donald's skin. Now, everybody thinks that they've already figured him out, that they have the psychological playbook. And I keep telling people, you are wrong. What you need to understand is it's not just calling him a moron. It's not just calling him a felon, a convict, a rapist. It's not that. It's also how you say it. Timing is extremely important. So for the first time, Joe Biden is going to have to practice being almost like an on-stage comic as much as he needs to be the president of the United States standing at a podium for a presidential debate. Because once again, you are not fighting a foe that you fully understand. So there were so many softballs that were thrown to Donald Trump. For example, when Trump was talking about how the Democrats, how the Biden administration has 3-month fetus termination, 6 months, 9 months, and even after the birth of the fetus, after the birth, this is where Biden needed to come in with the sledgehammer. Okay, listen up, you stable genius, or should I call you a moron? It is not an abortion post-birth. That's called murder. All right? You really need to fully understand. I know it may not be one of the charges that you were convicted of, one of the 34 charges, but it actually is a crime once a child is born to take that child's life because you don't want it. All right? It's different when you're talking about pre-birth, when you're talking about whether it's first trimester, second trimester, or late semester birth due to the life of the mother. That could be in question. Or maybe it's an ectopic pregnancy. Maybe the child will not be born alive. And so they remove it. It is absolutely it was an absolute opportunity for Biden to come in with a heavy-handed punch and get under the guy's skin. The mistake that was made here is you needed to do it from the very first question on. You can't let Trump get into his own skin. What you needed to do is to embarrass him on the very first question, and each and every question, he's getting angrier and angrier. The first time that he brought up, meaning the first time Joe Biden brought up the 34 felony counts, the convictions, was 45 minutes into the debate, halfway through. And that was a lost opportunity.
And look at the reaction it got from him. He started saying, well, your son Hunter is a convicted felon. And Biden should have said at that moment, he's not running for president, but you are. You know, like that's how I wish it would have gone.
And I would have said if I was Joe Biden at that, just to, again, knowing how to get under the guy's skin. I'm sorry. Do you see Hunter Biden on the stage?
Right.
Or have you forgotten my name too? Ronnie Johnson. You see what you exactly. You see the reaction that I just got from you is the reaction that the millions of people that were watching last night would also have had. They would be chuckling and saying, "Oh my God, this orange-crusted Mandarin Mussolini is fucking dumber than I thought."
Do you think it's just that we are so inured to his derangement that it's like that becomes an advantage to him because Joe Biden, who doesn't play in that sandbox, wants to be the bigger guy, wants to sound presidential and show civility and humility. Like, he doesn't want to play Trump's game, but if you don't play Trump's game, you get swallowed up by Trump. Isn't that the framework?
And I don't understand why the American people are giving Trump a pass on so many things. I mean, not too long ago, before a crowd of Jewish businessmen and women, he made a joke about the ovens used in the Holocaust. Now, I'm not sure that there's a joke there, unless, of course, the people that you're speaking to are neo-Nazi white supremacists. I just don't see where any humor can be had there. And yet, I speak to a whole slew of friends of mine who are Jewish as well, and they give him a pass on it. There is no pass for making fun, for trying to make a joke out of anything that has to do with the Holocaust. I just don't get it. I don't understand the jokes that Donald Trump is claiming that he's making, like the late, great Hannibal Lecter, that I was joking. What are you talking about? He is a character in a movie, Silence of the Lambs, played by Anthony Hopkins. So I'm just not sure what he's talking about, nor do I understand why we, the American people, continuously give him a pass on the idiotic, stupid, moronic things that he says, including the multitude of lies that come out of his mouth. I mean, yesterday, on top of that, another missed opportunity for Biden to go balls to the wall on, is where Trump claimed that the January 6th attack on the Capitol was a relatively small number of people who were ushered in by the police. There are so many responses that should have come out, which is, you joking, right? I know that you like to tell jokes because you're such a funny guy, but you're joking when you say this, because no normal person with an IQ over 5 would believe a single thing that you just said, considering we all saw it with our own eyes. We saw videos, we saw photographs, we listened to the testimony of the police officers like Harry Dunn or Michael Fanone, all expressing, and it wasn't just a small number, it was thousands and thousands of people wearing MAGA flags, wearing Trump 2024 flags, wearing your ugly, red brim, stupid MAGA hats.
And beating cops with those flags.
Right, and exactly. And then when he claimed that Nancy Pelosi was responsible for the lack of the response by 10,000 servicemen that he wanted to deploy, and that she actually acknowledges it in a documentary that was put forth by her daughter, Alexandra, who's a documentarian. This is complete and total bullshit. And it's scary. It's scary, the fact that Joe Biden didn't seize that opportunity. Had his campaign people taken a step back from their own egos and understand that they do not know how to fight this fight, and prepared Biden properly for this debate, everything would be different right now.
You should have been sitting in the front row. They should have had you sitting in the front row.
I didn't need to be in the front row. What I needed to be is a Camp David.
No, both. I'm not saying one or the other. I'm saying both.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's such a lost opportunity. And the member of Congress I'm talking about is a genius, and he would have been a tremendous help as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand why they think that they understand how to win right now in 2024. And look, both men are very open to criticism. Donald Trump is a fucking liar to the nth degree, period, bar none. Joe Biden looked tired, and he did not look sharp, and that is a major concern. Now, do I think that anybody's opinion of either Trump or Biden were changed last night? No, But the thing I fear the most is that the Gen Zers don't seem to be inspired by Joe Biden. And they were really looking, the independents were really looking to figure out, who do I go for? The guy who looks like he's really exhausted and that he's somewhat lost, despite his record. His record as president is really off the charts spectacular. It's just his ability to communicate to the American people. And that's what a presidential campaign is about. You need to be able to project all the things that you have done so far that has helped to make America what we are today. The #1 economy in the world by 2.5 times. The lowest unemployment in our country's history. The greatest increase in minority wealth ever. The CHIPS Act, the attacks against big pharma with insulin and so on and so forth. The infrastructure bill. All of the bipartisan stuff, too, needed to come out last night. But what Biden, again, missed the opportunity was to, from the right from the get-go, or as we would say when we were in prison, right off the rip, right? You got to come out punching Donald Trump, and you have to unhinge him. I actually thought if Biden was successful in doing that, question after question, response after response, getting Trump really hot under the collar, because Trump said nothing. His answers were meandering as they usually were. They had no form or substance or truth to it. You could have gotten under his skin and he would have walked off the stage, and it would have been a massive victory for the Biden administration, instead of people turning around and saying that he should step away and let somebody else, run.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next few days, in the next few weeks, not only with Biden on the campaign trail, but the polls, and we'll see how that goes. Appreciate you coming on for an important morning after analysis, and we'll look forward to our next chat.
Oh, I'm willing to join you anytime, Andy. Thank you so much.
All righty, take care. All right, it's time for Just Jeff. Jeff, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be back, and I hear my favorite song in the background. Thank you for selecting that.
Do you know why we're playing that? That's your song, isn't it? Isn't that you and Marsha's song?
That was the song played at our wedding.
I would say that's your song.
That's our song. We selected it, and that was only 59 years ago. It's amazing. I still remember it.
And you had an anniversary this week, right?
A couple of days ago, the 26th.
All right, so I want to ask you.
I'm glad your spies are doing their job.
Yes, Jen is not only a faithful daughter, but she's a great co-producer. So she did her homework and fed me the right information.
She's a great daughter.
So
she's a great daughter.
I got to ask you, as the obvious marital expert, how does one last 59 years in a marriage? Number one. Number two, how many of those years were good years?
Well, I'll tell you the secret of how a marriage lasts that long. You have to practice it a lot. Saying, yes, dear. Yes, dear. You're right, dear. That's it.
Yeah, just nod and go, yes, dear. Whether you like it or not. Good advice.
Anyway, I just using up all my. I wanted to actually comment
he's keeping track of time. Look at him. Jeff has a stopwatch right now.
I want to comment about your interviews with Michael Steele and Peter Strzok.
Yes, but you didn't answer the question. How many of those 59 were good years?
59.
Oh, look at that. Very well done, Jeff. Well done. All right, tell us about Michael Steele. And who is the other one?
Peter Strzok.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say, at that place, this is almost antiquated now, because you were saying that you disagreed with Matty and Jen. You said Trump is not even going to show up for the debate. And Matty and Jen said...
I was joking, Jeff.
I know. However, you're not joking. I think you have what is called... What's it called? You can...
No vision is what it's called.
You can see into the future, because in my opinion, Trump is not going to show up for the second debate. Okay. In fact, today he said now he loves CNN because thanks to CNN he was able to wipe the floor with his opponent. See? So one other thing, again, you said that you think Trump's going to pick Don Jr. for the vice president. And I was talking to myself. I said, no way. If he wants a nepotism, he would pick his daughter. He'd pick Ivanka.
She wouldn't take it, though.
I don't know about that.
Oh,
the
she
point
wouldn't.
My wife said he wouldn't ask her because Ivanka is Jewish. I'm not the only comedian in the family.
Wait, let's go to Jen for some commentary on her mother. How do you feel about your mom saying that, Jen?
Mom?
my
Wow.
God.
I
All
thought
right.
if you had nothing nice to say, you don't say anything at all.
No, she would look. She distanced herself from this campaign. There's no way she's ever going to be vice president. No way ever.
No.
Period. End of story.
No.
All right. Take care. We'll talk to you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
This episode of The Back Room was edited and produced by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-edited and co-produced by Matty Rosenberg, and co-produced by Jen Hammoud. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Hollander, and our logo was designed by Cricket Lengyel. And special thanks to Patricia Wind. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, and also follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and have a great week.